Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Travel Talk. And today we got a reader question. Shanae wanted to find out, and her exact question is, I'll get it for you. It is, uh, what are MQMs and why should I care about it? Now, MQMs are from Delta. Each airline has a different name for what they call the amount of miles that you need to qualify for elite status. In Delta, it is called MQMs, which is medallion qualifying miles. And now with Delta, they have a platinum medallion, gold medallion, silver medallion, and just a medallion member. There's also another category. I'm sorry, there's also diamond. Diamond is at the top, kind of, because they also have another category called 360. It's called the Delta 360. So if you hear people boarding and they're like, we're no boarding Delta 360 members, these are the people who have spent a lot of money with Delta. And so you get to this status that's not referenced anywhere. But only if you have this status, you'll get the status and everybody will know that you have the status. All the agents who need to know will know that you have the status. So you don't have to worry about that. So that's the Delta medallion qualifying miles. Now, what in order to get each elite status, Delta has um, a chart in essence. So when you go to your Delta SkyMiles account, you will always see something in there that says your status, the progress of your SkyMiles status. Right now, I don't have any status for Delta. I did, but they got on my nerves and I switched to American for the while. But they do have something called, there's also medallion qualification segments, and that is MQS. And so in order for you to get to the status you need to have a certain amount of medallion qualifying miles or medallion qualifying segment. So you can have 25,000 to get to silver or 30 segments. And a segment is flying from, say, Atlanta to JFK. So what a lot of people do is that when they're flying, instead of taking a nonstop, which is one segment, you take a connecting flight. So you may do Atlanta to Detroit to Washington, D.C., if that's what you're doing, or Atlanta to Detroit to New York instead of just doing the Atlanta nonstop to New York, because you get two segments for that. Now, in addition to having your medallion qualifying miles, MQMs, or medallion qualifying segments, MQS, as in Sam, you also need to do what's called a spend. The reason why they came up with the spend was a long time ago, all they had were just segment and miles. And then you had a lot of people, all they would do is just fly segments. So in people would fly like from New York to Florida. The prices were cheap and the segments were short enough, and they would just do 30 segments in, say a month or whatever it is that they would do, and then they would get the status for silver, for example. But then there's also somebody else who spent a lot of money with the airlines, but they don't fly as often. So they never either they end up getting the status, or it's like if you have somebody who spent a lot of money with you and somebody who spent a little money with you and they both get to the same status, then it's not really fair for the person who spent a lot more money to get to that status. So what they tried to do was to normalize the statuses so that you actually do have to spend some money with the airline to get it. So what they did was they added what's called the spend. And the spend is where you have it's called medallion qualifying dollars, MQD. Now, you need for silver, which is one of the categories, you need 25,000 MQMs, which is a medallion qualifying miles, or 30 segments, which is the MQSs in SAM, which is medallion qualifying segments. And so either those two, and you have to spend some money with the airline, at least $3,000. Or if you have the Delta American Express card, there is and you spend 25,000, then you don't need the dollar amount. So they have a chart and you need to look at the chart. So that's why it's important that's why you should care about your MQMs and your MQDs, because you also need to have the MQDs. So let's say you buy a whole bunch of cheap tickets, you're not going to be able to make the MQD unless you have the American Express card and you're spending money on that anyway, then that will waive the amount. So for example, for silver, it's 25,000 MQMs or 30,000 MQSs in SAM, and your 3,000 MQD or the waiver if you have the American Express card. For silver, for gold, is 50,000 MQMs or 60 MQS. And the amount you have to spend is 8,000. Platinum is 75,000 MQM or 100 MQS and 12,000 MQD or the waiver. And to get to diamond, it's 125,000 MQMs or 140 MQS and $20,000 in the MQDs. Or if you have the American Express Delta credit card, then and you spend the amount that they want you to spend, then there's a waiver. And also with the medallion year for Delta, it's a little different. It ends on the 31st of January. So your status is good from January 1. Let's say your status is valued from January 1 to December 31st. And then you earn it starting your earning end January 31st. So what you have a lot of people saying, oh my God, it's December and I don't have enough miles. So you have people called in the hotel industry, it's called mattress run, where people just stay at random hotels so they can get their status in number of nights. But with airlines, people just do random flights so they can get their status by January 31st the next year. Because if they don't, then they're going to keep whatever status they had. And once you get the status by that year, then you can fly. You have the status for the next 12 months. Let's see what else I wanted to say. Now, they have something to say miles versus MQMs. MQMs are only used to determine medallion status. That is your gold, platinum, etc. And earned based on distance flown and your fare class. Miles are redeemable and earned when you fly based on ticket price and medallion status. So, and there's a whole bunch of asterisks on this. Now, basic economy, for example, if you and I are in the same flight and you're in basic economy and I am in main cabin, or I guess what they call a Delta Comfort or one of those, I am going to get more MQMs than you because you bought a cheaper ticket. And so the more you pay for your ticket, the more MQMs you get. And MQMs are based on the base miles is what they call it for that trip. So let's say it is 100 miles for the segment from let's say you're going from New York to Atlanta. It's about let's say 1,000 miles, just for argument's sake. Then that's the base miles. If I buy a ticket that's more expensive, I will probably get a higher percentage of that 1,000 miles than you would if you didn't. Also, when you have other status, you get bonus. So you can get maybe 20%, 30%, because either you're buying a higher fare class, or you have a higher status, or you're flying in first class or business or something like that. So there's lots of different ways to earn MQMs. And they have a page. If you just go to delta.com and search MQMs, you'll find it. But I will include the page down in the description so you can go take a look at it. So I hope that helps. So the thing to remember, MQM is medallion qualifying miles, MQS is in Sam, medallion qualifying segments. So you can do either or, but you also have to do the dollar spend. At a minimum, if you're doing silver, you got to have 30 segments, 25,000 miles flown, or miles credited, because it's not necessarily you flew 25,000 miles. It's just that that's how the computations made it. Or, and you got to spend at least 8,000. And everything is detailed on this page. It is actually on delta.com, and it says what you need to reach medallion status. So that's a really good question. And I hope this helps. This page is actually really quite good. They've structured everything out and tell you what the benefits are and all that kind of good stuff, and show you what all the different, they don't talk about 360 because, like I said, you don't see a 360 on the Delta side. It's one of those, you have to be special to get 360. So I hope this helps. And I think this will give you all the information you need. But if not, just drop another question. I'll be more than happy to answer. This is Kerwin with Travel Talk and PassRider.com, cruisenaut2.com, and a whole bunch of other websites. But have a great flight and good luck with getting your MQM, and your MQMs, your MQDs, and your MQS. Geez, there's so many acronyms. All right, have a good trip and we'll talk soon.